Hi, everybody. I'm Terry Brown, and this is All Bass No Bull. And what I'm looking to do today is I've got an opportunity to talk to somebody who's very near and dear to me and talk a little bit about some of the ancillary things that go on in fishing that maybe are not noticed. And it's funny because it wasn't that long ago, maybe 10 years or so, when you went to a bass uh, ramp or a bass fishing lake, it was all Chevy, and now it's not, and it's all Toyota. And with me today is Luke Stoner. And Luke, we've got a storied history of hanging around a little bit together. You were my intern here, which I don't know what that really meant. The first day I asked Luke, I said, are you ready to do this? And he said, yeah, what are we going to do? I said, oh, we're just going to have fun. And that's really what we shoot at every day. That's what I shoot at every day. And you were my intern for a year or so, and then had the opportunity to go to Dynamic Sponsorships, which I've got to tell you, you guys are rocking, and it's really neat to see. I think sometimes we miss this. You don't the non-endemics don't get the credit they deserve, and Toyota in particular doesn't get the credit that they deserve. And it's funny because now they're everywhere. MLF, BASS, they're everywhere, and you're right in the middle of all that, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. So good to see you, Terry. As always, like you said, we've got a lot of good memories, and I tell anybody who will listen, I owe my entire career in the fishing industry to you. My internship with Wired to Fish and you back in the college days, gosh, over 10 years ago now. But yeah, that set me up for success and you got me connected with the Dynamic Group back in 2015. I moved out here in 2015, and Toyota is definitely our biggest and longest standing client. And from the outside looking in, like you said, you might see, as if you're a fan of fishing, you see the logo, you see the Toyota logo in a lot of places, but what you don't realize, and then you see the team Toyota guys, Kevin Van Dam and Gerald Swindle, Mike Iaconelli, Brandon Palaniuk, that group. But there's a whole team of us. Not a huge company. We're a group of 7 to 10 individuals, but we're all behind the scenes, doing a lot of that ancillary stuff that Toyota does in the industry. Whether it's the sponsorships, the first and foremost, the sponsorships of both Major League Fishing and Bassmaster, the two biggest, bass fishing trails in the world. And then you got the Toyota Bonus Bucks program, which is a contingency program more for grassroots anglers. We support and pay out over 600 events for bonus bucks, and that's from the top level weekend anglers, BFL, team tournament trails, college events, kayak events. Now we've got those added onto there, so it's a great program that really goes out and doesn't just support the league or the pro. It supports the guys like you and me that are out there fishing on the weekend. And then in Toyota, it really does. It's a laundry list. They've gotten involved with that new Bassmaster program, really kind of being the tip of the spear to try to get more young ladies and just women and young people in general outside. They have the whole team Toyota. It's 8 pros now, plus the 3 Bassmaster individuals. So there's 11 people now that Toyota sponsors full time as Team Toyota athletes in the bass fishing world. Each year we have our Toyota Owners Tournament, and that's held in the fall. I know that's one thing we were just talking about, Terry, is this is going to be our first year, 14th annual Toyota Owners Tournament. But we're first year going to Lake Gunnersville, and so that will be this October 25th and 26th out of Goose Pond down there on Gunnersville. And that's such a great event. It's at the end of each year, at the end of the tournament season. It's kind of like our year-long celebration, and it really does feel more like a family reunion. It's no entry fee, $5,000 for the first, guaranteed for first place. So it's not a huge money tournament. You're not coming there to get rich. You're coming there to have fun and celebrate all things, Toyota and bass fishing. So,
It's funny. Sealock and I got to fish it down at Kentucky Lake one time, and we should have won the doggone thing. Lost a couple fish, but we ended up 7th, and I had a blast. I really did. Jason was running a Toyota then, and we had a great time, and the people were just fantastic. And they came from all over the country
mm-hmm.
to come fish that tournament. Gunnersville is going to be phenomenally good in the fall, so it should be outstanding frog time, and there ought to be a lot of fish caught. So that'll be a really neat deal. You've got all the things that are going on at Toyota, but I want to give credit where credit's due too. Is Dynamic. Dynamic is now the agency of record for Toyota in the outdoors, and it's neat to see all the other things. I mean, you guys have got Lear, you've got Yamaha, you've got all these things. What's really unique about what Dynamic's doing is building affiliate programs, and your affiliate programs are phenomenal. Can you talk a little bit about those two?
Yeah, and so I appreciate that, Terry. Yeah, and that's what we're really we're blessed. We're a great group. Every single one of my coworkers and people that I rub elbows with are people that I trust, people that I would go have dinner with, whether we're out on working a job or just to go have a bite to eat and enjoy each other's company. And we're in a unique position because we're all just men and women who are ate up with the outdoors, and so that's literally how we got in this position. Is we're the conduit. Dynamic is that conduit between these national brands like a Toyota or a Yamaha, and those folks, they have a marketing budget. They want to reach the outdoor consumer, and they have the wherewithal to go hire folks who live and breathe it. Because Terry, you can speak as well as I too can. It's a no BS audience out there in the outdoors. We can, within a few minutes of talking to somebody, you can tell just how much or how little they fish or how much they follow, the sport of fishing and tournament fishing. And so, and obviously we're not pigeonholed just to fishing, but just the outdoors in general. It's a pretty no BS audience. Authenticity shines. And that's really what our group hangs our hat. We're out there living it and breathing it, and we're not afraid to get on the road and work the events, shake hands, meet fans, meet outdoor consumers, talk to them about our products and our companies. But then, like you said, really have those affiliate programs, which, an old Costa client jokingly dubbed us the kingpins of contingency, us here at Dynamic. And that basically, we love to make those contingency programs because it's usually free to register. All, Costa Compete and Conserve, Yamaha, PowerPay, Toyota Bonus Bucks, they're free to sign up. All you have to do is own the product. So the hard part, is going out and buying a pair of sunglasses, a truck, or a Yamaha motor. And once you have the product, you sign up for free. And then you are incentivized to use that product in those tournaments, because if you are the highest finishing angler running a Tundra or a Toyota tow vehicle, a Yamaha outboard, or a pair of Costa shades, you get an extra paycheck out of it. So in turn, it's good for you, the angler. It's good for the industry. It's good for the company. We try to set up those scenarios where it's kind of good for everyone involved.
Well, your boss, Lance Peck, and I have been friends for a long, long time. And he's one of the guys in the space here that, in the industry, that you can be square with. He'll call me complaining, throwing a fit, whatever, and I do the same to him. And it's been a while since I've talked to him, but that's the unique flavor of Lance, is the fact that he'll talk to you, even though he may not agree with you. He will talk to you, and you can kind of voice where you're at and what you're thinking about. With BASS, MLF, all those other organizations, there's got to be so much legwork that goes into the activation of those sponsorships. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about what some of the things you guys do are?
Yeah. So, there's really two sides. I'm more on the marketing or content production side, if you will, to where, that's when I'm on site these days, that's usually what I'm doing. I'm working on social media content, cranking out stories or articles with some of our pros or our affiliates, promoting the Toyota Bonus Bucks program, working with on-site videographers. So we have that whole spoke of the wheel, but really a big part of our company is events as well. And so, we have a team of folks that with a Tundra and a trailer, a 26-foot trailer, haul assets all across the country. We have a minimum 4 people on site at every Elite Series event, and then every Bass Pro Tour, Major League Bass Pro Tour event that they have on-site activation at. We have at least 4 people on site. And so, we literally, from soup to nuts, just like you taught me, Terry, it is setting up the tents. It's moving over the barrels full of water to hold down the tents. And then, every display element portion of our activation, which usually includes, some sort of game, obviously a lot of products. We want you to interact and learn about the product, be able to touch it, feel it, smell it, ask questions, talk to pros or field staff, regional pros, people that have used that product, 7 days a week. And then, have some sort of fun interaction, play a game, let your kids play the game, walk away with a little Toyota or Yamaha tchotchke, and kind of leave that site feeling like, oh, dang, I learned something today, had a good time. And maybe when you're making your next purchase decision, that will pop back into your head. So there's a lot of moving parts at those events. And we jokingly refer to ourselves as kind of like the traveling circus, the bass fishing circus. We tear it up, tear it down. And admittedly, I don't do as much as that these days. Like you said earlier, I'm on year 10 now, so I don't do as much of the sweaty tear up, set down stuff. I miss it a little bit sometimes. There's some joy in that mindless work, but our group has many feet moving around those tournaments when we bounce around the country.
Well, it's funny because you and I met through your dad. Actually, your dad was a
Mhm.
principal at a school here in Illinois, and I started high school fishing here in Illinois. And he told me one day, he said, "Yeah, I think Luke's going to be an intern, at another company." And I went, "Okay." And so about 2 days later, he calls me up. He said, "Well, that didn't work. Would you have any opportunity for him?" I said, "Bring him. Tell him to come on. Let's go. Let's do it." So you became my intern, which we covered a lot of ground. We went fishing at
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple really good private lakes. Had some fun. Did some stuff like that. But the story of high school fishing and now Toyota's involvement in it a little bit. And can you talk a little bit more about something that just happened with Toyota?
Yeah, yeah. So first thing, I got to call myself out on two things. One, I'll never forget when you called me because we did not. When you called me to offer me that internship, I was on not a field trip, but a college. We had like a deal basically where we were off campus. So I was on a bus and I was down in the. I was my spirits were really low because I had just lost an internship that I'd been working on for 2 months, and it wasn't my own fault. It was an out of state deal that just kind of didn't come to fruition. And I was thinking, man, I'm never going to get a job. I'm screwing everything up. I'm supposed to have an internship by now. And all of a sudden I looked down on my phone, Terry Brown's calling me, and we had a 2 or 3 minute conversation on that bus, and I literally hung up the phone and was like, did that just happen? Was that real? Did that really just happen? Am I wired to fish is calling me? So it made a huge impact, and obviously everything that we got to do that summer certainly did too. And I also will never forget, I fudged up the footage on one of you catch it. You got on a big school of hybrid stripers or striped bass somewhere, and we had the camera running, and we thought it was going to be great stuff. And I don't know exactly what I did, but I know I messed it up. So I haven't forgotten that either. So
I don't even remember that. That's how bad it was. I'm going to tell my old story. I tell everybody is that the first day he comes in, he said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "Have fun." Well, in my shop here behind where I sit, there's a warehouse area, and I get boxes of stuff every day coming in. People want you to see things, test things, do that kind of stuff. And I had all these boxes stacked to the ceiling, and I said, "Why don't you just break those boxes down?" I'll never forget this as long as I live. One of the greatest stories ever. And you went back there, turned on the tunes, and had at it, and come back around the corner of my office here, and you go, "You really didn't care if I broke those boxes down, did you?" I said, "Just wanted to see if you would." And that's how we kicked everything off. In high school fishing,
yep.
you fished for, I think, Pekin, right?
I
In high
did.
school,
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks to you. Yeah.
I think one of the first classes, maybe if not the first, the second. But you look at where the kids are now. I called them squirrel hunters. I had one kid in the boat when they first started. I called him Trip because he fell down all the time. It was just all those kind of things that went on. And now, man, you better be ready when you come out with these high school kids now, and they're fishing with adults, and you can see at the highest level, in
Oh,
Elite Series and MLF, you can see they're kicking everybody's butt.
100%. So it's so impressive what through college and high school fishing. But on the high school side, Major League Fishing just did their high school fish camp last weekend down at Kentucky Lake. I was actually over there for a couple of days for the Bass Pro Tour event held in conjunction. But it was really cool. I think it was their 7th year doing that, and they had over 150 kids registered this year, which we were super fired up about. And Toyota stepped in, wanted to do a little surprise and delight, and so they actually went ahead and paid. We were able to pay for the entry. $300 is what it cost to register for the camp. We were able to pick out six attendees who either themselves or their legal guardians, their parents, were Toyota drivers, and we were able to pay for 6 of their entry fees to that high school fish camp. And then also gave them some Toyota swag, and we're able to recognize them a little bit. So that was a super cool deal. And those high school fish camps mean a lot to our office because my coworker Chip Porche, who works a ton on the Yamaha Power Pay program, he always talks about he participated in an influential high school fish camp. Down, I think it was on Sam Rayburn. I think he got to fish with Mark Davis as a young kid, and he is told, like, I've probably asked him 10 times to tell me that story again, because little nuances he learned from Mark and just things that have stayed with him for 20 years, and he's gone on to be able to, he was an Elite Series pro himself. He's done so many cool things in the industry, but that fish camp still sticks out to him. And I never participated in a fish camp myself, but high school fishing was my fish camp. And you nailed it, Terry. I was able to fish my sophomore year, which was the first year they offered high school fishing, thanks large in part to gentlemen like yourself, and they're in Illinois. And that changed my life. I mean, it 100% changed my life. And so anytime that we can get involved, whether it's Toyota or one of our other clients, if we can get involved and support that youth level of fishing, that grassroots level, that's what we like to do, because you are 100%. I mean, look what we see on the Elite Series or the Bass Pro Tour right now. Half those names you wouldn't have recognized a few years ago because they were quite literally fishing in college or high school still. I mean, the Tucker Smiths, the Logan Parks, the Easton Fothergills of the world, these guys they're coming out of school, as you said, Terry, ready to go. I mean, they are. Tucker, I believe Tucker is the best example. I think he won the Junior Bassmaster Championship as like a 6-year-old. I don't even know if he could cast yet. And then he won the high school national championship at the Bassmaster level, and then the college national championship. And now he's an Elite Series champion his rookie year on Lake Fork. And guess what? He ain't going anywhere. He's got 40 years in front of him, and there's going to be 10 more, Tucker Smiths next year too. So it's such a cool program across the country, and to see it continually to churn out top talent like it has, it's just been super impressive.
Well, it's amazing to me. I always said every kid you get fishes one less you have to worry about breaking into your car, and it's very important that we continue to evolve with the kids. Let's get the kids in a position where they're learning, they're involved, they're staying on top of the game, doing all the things they need to do, but also teach them a little bit about life. I wrote a column in a bunch of newspapers for a lot of weeks, and almost 700 columns. And I don't think I ever talked about techniques. I don't think one time I ever talked about a technique. I think I talked about how life and how things and how your life was changed, which is really, really important. Here doing this podcast gives me the opportunity to talk about the positive things in fishing. And, last week we had Denny on. You're the second week we've done this, and it's all about positiveness. I mean, there's a lot of complaining and bitching and whining and that kind of stuff. Reality says, though, to be straight up with you, it happened before.
Yep.
The negative part of this thing is now social media, everything's brought to the top of the heap. And I can tell you that I was in a boat with a lot of pros when there was a lot of cussing back and forth at each other.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of years. No one ever heard about it.
Yep.
The Ray Scotts of the world always talked about Bo Dowden being an Olympic swimmer. He was about as much of an Olympic swimmer as I am a race car driver. And, it was that kind of stuff that was always kind of held under the bushes. It really wasn't in the forefront. Now with social media, you burp and somebody's going to talk about it on social media. So it's kind of up to us to be more, how can I say it, more positive?
Yeah.
Because it's the greatest sport going. I mean, I left the job at State Farm Insurance, and it was time for me to leave, and I was glad I did. But I left the job where it was about money, and it was about coming in 5 days a week and some of that kind of stuff. But in reality, to be able to follow my dream, just like you did, follow your dream, and it's so cool when you get to a position where you go, man, does it get any better than this? And I think that's where you're at. That's where I'm at. I love this industry. I love the people in it. And, I started Wired to Fish, and I don't know how long ago that was, 18 years ago or something. And now I'm transitioning to some other stuff now. But in reality, man, what a great life and a great way to spend your life doing things you love.
Oh, couldn't agree anymore, Terry. I've always been a glass is half full kind of guy anyway, but and there's negativity and everything. I totally agree. Social media has combined that, or basically amplified that tenfold. But I am very grateful, and I even the guys who have rough days, who might make a negative social post here or there, the guys and gals that we get to rub elbows with working in the industry that we do, we all know we have it good. At the end of the day, you look around, I do this thing every once in a while. I'll scroll through my recent calls, and I still do this to this day, 10 years in the industry. I'll scroll through my recent calls. I'll see some of the names on there, and I'm just like, holy crap. Am I really talking to all these guys? Like, these guys and gals have to call me for something, or I call them for something, and I still have to pinch myself, and I consider myself super lucky. It's still work, of course it becomes a job. And that's one thing that, I talk to a lot of high school and college anglers too, that have, that that originally want to be pros, but then after a few years, they're like, maybe I just want to work in the industry, and that's fine too. And one thing I do always tell them is you really have to love it, because the miles are real, the time away from home, the hours that you put in, it's real, and it can have that. You can, don't let yourself drift into the where fishing becomes work, because fishing always, to me, has always been my release. And so if on a weekend when I need to burn off some steam, or, and go spend a day and enjoy myself, I want to go fishing. I don't want that to feel like work. And so that's one thing I've always been very, just be careful about that. You got to love it, and don't get into it for the wrong reasons, thinking you're going to get rich, or thinking, oh, it's, I'm just going to be the lifestyles of the rich and the famous. It's a job, it's work, but we're incredibly lucky to work around the people and in the industry that we do.
It's funny you mentioned it. I chased the dream too. I fished in Florida. I went all over the country, drove around, did it. And then one day I had this realization that maybe there's a place for me, because I love for the love of the sport, that I could do things with those same people, but not have to spend an arm and a leg to do it and chase all over the country. You're talking about the phone calls. I was sitting at my desk one day, when I was at State Farm, and the phone rings, and I look down on it. It says Bill Dance, and a guy was sitting in my office. He goes, "That ain't the same one." As yeah, it's the same one. And we're sitting and talk to him, and I mean, he's godfather of everything fishing. Still out there busting it. But you start looking at the guys, and Denny was my first podcast here, and the reason for that, he was also my first podcast at Bass Fan Radio.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I look back. Jay Kumar told me the other day. He said, we were talking about podcasts, and everybody's got a podcast now, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a podcast. My thing is that I had that before there was one.
Yep.
Bass Fan Radio was out there, and I had Wired to Fish Radio after that, and it's kind of neat to see all the ground you've cut. And my goal is very simple. I want to get guys like you enthused about what we do, and you're a testament to that. Guess what? If you can find 4 or 5 guys like Eli who works with us, or you, or all these other people, and we can get them engaged, because I'm not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 70, and I'm still doing what I do every day, but there's going to be somebody that's going to have to replace me. And I think it's very important, even at your young age and starting your life where you're at, you got to be looking for that next guy too. And that's what I do every day. That's what I do every day.
Well, you've done as good a job as anybody and you really have, Terry. Obviously, I'm beholden to you, and I'm biased, but I say that all the time. And I know you've helped a lot, far more than just myself, in terms of young anglers. That that's the thing. We all get into it because we love fishing, we love tournament fishing, we want to be the guy on the stage. But there are so many opportunities in bass fishing, and in and around bass fishing, and just this industry for careers nowadays. And I mean, some of them are continually popping up. Social media never sleeps. And 5 years ago, there was literally like 6 dudes maybe at events with a camera, like Kyle Van Dever, who filmed for Brandon Palaniuk, 1 or 2 other guys that might have been on the cutting edge of having a YouTube channel. Now, when you go to an event, it is literally, it's awesome, but there are 40 people that you got to dodge on the dock, carrying Sonys and filming, high-end YouTube content or video content and these tournament vlogs for different anglers. And so and that's 40 jobs that didn't exist a few years ago. And what will be that next thing? But just, if you have the passion for it, and this is where you want to make your living, just go for it, and be tunnel vision, be bullheaded. Obviously, try to get a job that you love too. You always want to do something that you love, but don't be afraid to do something, that get your hands a little dirty to get your foot in the door. Cause, Terry, you can attest to that too. This industry is really small, and it seems big, but it is small, and contacts are everything. You can never burn a bridge, because a bad word will travel really fast about you in this industry, just like a good word will. So, get in there, do the right things, work hard, love it, have a smile on your face, and you can go far.
Well, there's 2 things. Number one, I always said it, I would never tell anybody to take a crap in their hat. And the reason why I won't do that, because I don't want to wear that hat. The other thing is, fishing is a sport of a lifetime. You can fish sitting on a bucket somewhere. The only thing bad about it is parts wear out. Brower and I talked about it a little bit last week. You get a bad knee, you get a replacement, you get bad hips, you do this, you do that. That will end at the highest level. You're not going to always be able to fish at the highest level. We're seeing it now. The young guys like Ike and Ellie and Skeet and all those guys were the young guns, right?
Yep.
Now Skeet's retired. Ike's still out there banging around, but you don't know Swindle. Some of those other guys, they're still hustling, but they're getting older too. And I told them a long time ago, I said, boys, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget where you came from. Luke, I appreciate it as always. It's great to have you on here with me. We talk on the side a lot, and I thought this was very apropos to be able to get you here to talk about Toyota, to talk about Costa, to talk about the things that are going on at Dynamic. I appreciate what you do each and every day. You're the guy that's following me, man. That's all I'm going to say. And thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks so much for having us, Terry, and having me. And I appreciate you and all that you do as well. And thanks to Eli. Thanks to this whole group. It's an honor to be here. You told me that I had to follow Danny Brower, which makes me feel terrible for you guys that I was the follow-up. But, hey, what can you do? So we'll keep striving.
I put both you guys at the same level. You're both.
Come on.
At the top of the heap, buddy. You're both at the top of the heap. It's funny. The Brower thing, we talk quite a bit too. And 10 years ago or so, we started talking about the state of the sport. And that was when he was kind of transitioning. He won the Classic and some of that stuff. It's amazing to me that we're now still doing what we do, and I love it. Thanks again, Luke, for being with us.
Thank you, Terry. You guys have a great one.
Oh, there we go.